I'll be honest and say that usually when I tell people I'm a hypnotherapist, their initial reaction is always to laugh. I think in some ways that this is a defense mechanism, a way for them to mask their skepticism and stop themselves from blurting out something rude like, "That's not a real job," or, "So basically, you're a charlatan." By laughing, they allow themselves a pause, time to compose a reaction that is more polite and to ask questions that won't offend me. Though, of course, I always know what they are thinking. Even the more polite strangers I meet will raise a smile when I mention my job. They raise their eyebrows in an unintentional dismissive way, as if I just told them I was a ghost hunter or a unicorn breeder or a magician. Even now, in the 21st century with decades of research into the effects and benefits of hypnosis, not to mention a clear and documented understanding of how the process works, people still think of it as hocus pocus, nonsense that does not count as real medicine or treatment. So naturally, they react the way they do. Had I told them I was a psychologist, that I had a background in psychotherapy, or listed my qualifications, then I know they would have nodded politely and asked pertinent and interesting questions. But hypnotist? That is simply a target for ridicule. I imagine even as I write this, that you're probably thinking something similar. It's worth mentioning here that hypnosis is not about putting people to sleep or making them bark like a dog on some phony stage show. Real hypnosis is simply a state of consciousness where the subconscious and the waking consciousness overlap. In many ways, it is similar to the state you enter when you're daydreaming. Just think, have you ever driven your car home or to work and only realized when you got there that you had done the entire drive without thinking about it? Have you ever pulled up and thought, "Wait, I don't even remember the journey here. I just did it automatically whilst thinking about something else." Or perhaps you set off for one destination but ended up taking the wrong turn because you were repeating a route that you usually take rather than the one you were planning. In every case, the mind is preoccupied with another idea whilst the body has taken over the job of doing the functional stuff. If this has ever happened to you, then you have experienced hypnosis. It's the same disconnected state, and it can be beneficial. The benefits of voluntarily entering into this state are wide-ranging and can be as simple as providing an environment for physical and mental relaxation, or as complex as making massive life changes. You see, whilst your mind is in this state we call hypnosis, it is far more suggestible, meaning that ideas, notions, or suggestions given to you during hypnosis are far more likely to become fixed ideas than if the suggestion was made whilst you were fully conscious. This is why a lot of people, and my clients, use hypnosis to alter their behaviors, particularly to break habits or overcome addictions. In the past 20 years, I've worked with literally hundreds of clients who are trying to cut down on their alcohol consumption, or more commonly, quit smoking. In almost every case, I have great success, and I would say that around 90% of the folks I've worked with quit smoking for an extended period, with most managing to quit for good. Still, the attitude to hypnosis remains the same. That's why whenever I talk to people in Morton, where I live, I tell them that I work in therapy, or that I'm a therapist without mentioning the whole hypnosis part. I've been working as a hypnotherapist for over 20 years, and I have a practice in the city, but I like to keep that fact to myself when I'm at home. Not only because people in small towns tend to have small ideas and see hypnosis as something strange and threatening, but because once, several years ago, I was involved in treating a resident of Morton using hypnosis in a way that was not entirely successful. Linking myself back to that incident and the unfortunate outcome is not something I really want to do. In fact, I find it better to keep as much distance from the whole thing as possible. The incident itself occurred around 4 years ago. In some ways, I guess I should have realized, because almost from the start, the sessions had a very peculiar character to them. The client's name was Adam. He was around 30 years old and, in most respects, looked like your average guy. With the exception of one thing, his eyes. Adam, you see, looked haunted. From the very moment that I met him, I could tell two things about Adam. First, that he was in desperate need of reassurance. And secondly, some idea, memory, or incident was mentally torturing him. Whether it was childhood trauma, PTSD, or what, I didn't know, but there definitely was something. His eyes rested above dark, heavy bags, as if he hadn't slept for months. His skin was sallow and pockmarked, and he was severely underweight. The bones of his cheeks and the rims of his eye sockets jetted out at severe and unnatural angles. It took me less than one session to find out the reason. Adam was suffering from guilt. Though he never specifically explained why he felt guilt, what he had done or to whom, the weight of his supposed crimes was clear to see. In our very first session, he asked and almost pleaded with me to take away what he was feeling. His guilt, he explained, was not a feeling or a thought, but a physical sensation, something that he could feel within him, moving around. Sometimes it was a heaviness in his chest, like someone had placed a heavy leaden ball in the center of his sternum. Other times it was a cold, stabbing sensation, like an ice churning in his belly, as if hands made of frost were clamping around the stomach, squeezing and tightening over the course of the day. He told me how this gnawing feeling of anxiety was affecting every aspect of his life. He told me how he had tried everything, from doctors to priests, sitting in confession though he wasn't even Catholic, and crying for them to absolve and forgive him. Nothing had helped. "What I want," he told me that first day, "is to erase it, to make it as if what happened never happened, so that the memory and the feeling isn't there anymore. I want you to find that part of my brain where the memory lives, or the guilt is stored, and wash it away. Paint it black. Take this feeling away." I told him, of course, that I couldn't guarantee anything, but that I would try. I also asked him that very first day whether he would be comfortable telling me exactly what it was that he felt guilty about, in the strictest confidence. Adam only shook his head. "Maybe," he explained. "If I could take away the pain, then maybe he could tell me, but for now, there was no way." So I set about trying to ease his anxiety and help him forget whatever he had done. Over the next 6 months, I saw Adam 3 times a week for sessions for 2 hours and found him to be a fantastic hypnotic subject. He went into trance easily, responded to suggestions, and seemed, at least whilst he was under hypnosis, to relax a little. Oddly though, whenever I got to the point that suggested he forget about his problems, remove the feelings of guilt or shame, and replace them with a positive feeling, he would have the most violent reaction I have ever seen from a client under hypnosis. His entire body would go rigid, his muscles taunting and straightening so that he was physically lifted off the couch as if he were having some kind of convulsion or had just had his feet plugged into the main electrical supply. His face would crumple and fold in on itself, and he would grind his teeth so violently that I could actually hear the surface of one scraping over the other. At the end of each session, however, he would sit up like a new person, wide awake, full of energy, and smiling from ear to ear. It was only after around 2 weeks that he told me about the vomiting, and only after a month that he had started to have the pains. The vomiting, he told me, occurred around an hour or 2 after each session. He would go home feeling a lightness he had not experienced in months, but after an hour or so would feel a wave of nausea overcome him. Racing to the bathroom, he would throw up violently, always vomiting up what he described as thick black liquid. I suggested that he visit a doctor, which he promptly did, and only to be told that there was physically nothing wrong with him. After a few weeks of this vomiting after each session, I noticed that Adam stopped referring to his problem as guilt, calling it instead my issue. He reported that he felt better than he had for months, and that he now regarded the vomiting almost a purging exercise.
It's like I'm getting rid of the stuff that I don't need, physically. You wipe it away, and I suck it up when it becomes detached.
I tried to explain that emotions were not physical substances, but he continued his strange belief until the pain began. He first described it as a stabbing or twisting sensation in the gut. While he no longer had nightmares, was sleeping better and looking healthier than he had for almost a decade. The pains would periodically render him unable to even stand. I told him that these symptoms were unrelated to his hypnotherapy, but that he should get checked out by a doctor, which he did again. Having found no physical problems or explanation for the pain, Adam attributed them to the hypnotherapy sessions, pointing out that the vomiting had ceased, but that the pains only came on the days when he attended hypnotherapy. As for his original issue, he generally could no longer remember what it was that he came in for in the first place.
Whatever it was that I came in for, it's gone,
he would say, though he continued to attend the sessions religiously, 3 times a week regardless, just in case his issues reappeared. It was only after a few months, during which the pain seemed to get worse, changing from a stabbing twist to an almost gnawing feeling within his stomach, that I suggested we discontinue our sessions. I explained to him that although it seemed unlikely, I did not want to risk the possibility that his physical problems were a result of his hypnosis. And if I'm honest, I was a little scared. Whilst Adam always spoke of erasing the memories of whatever it was he did, the process doesn't really work like that. Rather, a hypnotherapist would simply suppress those feelings, mask them and hide them deep in the subconscious, burying them where the conscious mind can't find them, or replacing them with positive feelings. What I didn't want to deal with was the possibility that these buried or suppressed memories might find a way to manifest physically. I don't want to suppress emotions or feelings only to find that in 6 months' time they manifest themselves somewhere else in the body as a tumor, I told him. When he asked me if there was any actual evidence that such a thing could happen, I had to concede that there wasn't. Nevertheless, I was firm and discontinued our sessions, declaring him cured of what he originally came in complaining of, something proven by the fact that he could no longer remember what it was he felt guilty about in the first place. At our last meeting, he told me with what I took to be complete honesty.
I would tell you what it was, why I felt such guilt, but you're too good at your job. I couldn't tell you even if I wanted to because I simply can't remember.
That was the last time I saw Adam. A month later, he was dead. The official report didn't reveal much. It was only through a friend and a substantial bribe to a police officer that I was able to get more information about what he actually died of. According to his friend who had attended the scene when Adam was found, it was like nothing he'd ever seen before.
He was on the bed, spread eagle, and fully clothed,
my friend whispered quietly,
but with a massive hole in him. Just a great big hole from the waist to his ribcage.
I remember at this point I shuddered, remembering my idea about the guilt coming back as a tumor, but my friend shot that idea down in flames.
Oh no, this weren't no tumor. It wasn't a hole that went right through, you see. It was like he'd swallowed a stick of dynamite and something just exploded in him, but only came out of the front of him. It was a real mess.
He shook his head, paused for a moment, and then added quietly,
Thing is, what really freaked me out about it was that all around the edges, there was teeth marks. Big 9 teeth marks on organs, on ribs, and on the skin where the hole was. Between you and me, the doc at the scene said it looked like something inside of him had chewed its way out. I don't know what or where it got to afterwards, but bloody hell, it gave me the creeps.
The information given to me by my friend clearly found another outlet, because soon it was common knowledge. The story of Adam's guilt is one told often in Morton, along with the fact that he was attending hypnosis sessions with someone in the city. Though, of course, exactly who that was is never quite revealed.